Hi, it's TK with the weekly words of encouragement. Over the summer, I taught a 5-week class at my church on the biblical character Joseph. After the class ended, my husband suggested I create a series of video devotionals on Joseph and other biblical characters. Well, thanks to his suggestion, this is our first installment of the Biblical Characters series. We'll find encouragement in the stories of various people in the Bible, and we'll conclude our series with the most important biblical character, Jesus. Okay, let's start with Joseph. I pray his story reminds you that regardless of your circumstances, God's hand is on your life and his purpose will prevail. He may be using your circumstances to fulfill his plan and purpose for your life. Joseph's story is told in the book of Genesis. He was one of the 12 sons of Jacob, but Jacob preferred Joseph over his other sons because Joseph was his first child with his favorite wife, Rachel. Jacob gave Joseph a coat of many colors to signify his preferred status. Imagine being one of the other brothers. That coat served as a constant reminder your father preferred your brother. Not surprisingly, they despised Joseph. And their hate only grew when Joseph's dreams seemed to indicate his brothers would one day bow before him. So when his brothers had Joseph alone, they planned to kill him and his dreams. Throwing him into a pit as they pondered their options, they instead decided to sell him to slave traders to keep his blood off their hands. At this point, I'm sure Joseph doubted the truthfulness of his dreams, but God was at work, even in the midst of the challenging circumstances Joseph faced. He may have been discouraged about his dreams, but Romans chapter 11 verse 29 reminds us that God's gift and his call can never be withdrawn. So don't stop dreaming. God's call on Joseph's life didn't change because he was sold into slavery, and God's call on your life remains intact regardless of your current circumstances or status. Joseph was taken to Egypt, where he was sold as a slave to an Egyptian official named Potiphar. He was successful in Potiphar's house because God was with him. He was eventually placed in charge of the entire household. This detail reminds us we succeed when God is with us. We don't have to be in a palace to be successful. We just need God to be with us. Well, then things took a turn. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph. When Joseph rejected her advances, she accused him of trying to rape her. Potiphar threw Joseph into prison. Genesis chapter 39 verse 21 tells us that the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed Joseph his faithful love. In one of the most difficult seasons of his life, God was with Joseph, and he's with you too in the midst of your difficulties. Not only was God with Joseph, but he was also at work in Joseph's imprisonment. Joseph was sent to Pharaoh's prison, where government officials sent their prisoners. Being in that particular prison ultimately gave Joseph access to Pharaoh. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I wanted to offer this encouragement. God cares about every detail of our lives, and he is at work, even in unpleasant circumstances. The prison warden placed Joseph in charge of the other prisoners, including 2 of Pharaoh's officials. These officials had dreams, and God empowered Joseph to interpret their dreams. Joseph asked one of them to remember him, but the official forgot all about Joseph. Now, after some time had passed, Pharaoh had dreams no one could interpret. Finally, the official remembered Joseph as someone who could interpret dreams. Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and God granted Joseph the power to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. The dreams meant that Egypt and the surrounding areas would experience 7 years of flourishing, followed by 7 years of famine. God also empowered Joseph to offer a plan to manage resources during these years of flourishing and famine. As a result, Pharaoh appointed him as second in command in Egypt, Joseph was now in the palace. And Joseph's political position ultimately saved the lives of the same brothers who sold him into slavery. Because the famine reached Joseph's family, his brothers traveled to Egypt for food. Well, Joseph was in charge of the food supply, so his brothers had to bow before him to get access to food, though they didn't recognize him. Remember Joseph's dreams? They came to fruition. This is a full circle moment and a reminder that your God-given dreams, despite delays, are not in vain and will come to pass in God's time. Joseph eventually revealed his identity to his brothers and reconciled with them. He also reunited with his father, Jacob. God used the brothers' hatred to put into action his plan, as reflected in the words Joseph spoke. You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. Joseph's story reminds us God is in control, even when it seems our world is spiraling out of control. He uses all things, even difficult and challenging circumstances, for His divine purpose. So if you're in a pit, enslaved, or imprisoned today, just remember, your story isn't over yet. Your palace experience may be just around the corner. I pray you have a blessed week, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.